Imagine a world where the ruling class holds all the wealth and power, while the working masses toil endlessly with little to show for it. This stark reality isn't just a dystopian fiction, it was the world Karl Marx sought to understand and change. Marx's groundbreaking theories have influenced countless movements and shaped modern political thought. Today, we dive deep into the life, ideas, and enduring legacy of Karl Marx, unraveling his key concepts from social struggle to false consciousness and alienation. Whether you're new to Marxist theory or looking to deepen your understanding, this comprehensive guide will illuminate the profound impact of Marx's ideas on our world. Karl Marx, born on May 5, 1818 in Trier, Prussia, was a philosopher, economist, historian, political theorist, sociologist, journalist, and revolutionary socialist. His works, particularly the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital, have left an indelible mark on history. Marx's critique of capitalism and his vision for a classless society have inspired revolutions, political parties, and academic debates for over a century. To truly grasp Marx's theories, it's essential to understand the historical context in which he wrote. The 19th century was a time of rapid industrialization, which brought about significant economic and social changes. The rise of factories transformed economies and societies, leading to urbanization and the development of a working class. However, these changes also resulted in harsh working conditions, economic inequality, and social unrest. Marx's early life and education played a crucial role in shaping his ideas. Raised in a middle-class family, Marx was exposed to Enlightenment ideas and the philosophy of Hegel, whose dialectical method influenced Marx's own approach. While studying at the University of Bonn and later the University of Berlin, Marx immersed himself in the works of Hegel, Feuerbach, and other German philosophers. In 1843, Marx moved to Paris, where he met Friedrich Engels, who would become his lifelong collaborator. Engels, the son of a wealthy industrialist, shared Marx's critique of capitalism and provided him with invaluable support. Paris was a hotbed of radical thought, and it was here that Marx began to develop his ideas on socialism and communism. Published in 1848, the Communist Manifesto is one of Marx's most famous works. Co-authored with Engels, the manifesto outlines the principles of Marxism and calls for the working class to rise up against the bourgeoisie. It begins with the powerful declaration, "The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles." At the heart of Marx's theory is the concept of class struggle. Marx believed that history is driven by conflicts between different social classes. He argued that the economic base of society influences its political and ideological superstructure. This idea, known as historical materialism, posits that the mode of production in any given society shapes its social and political structures. Marx identified two main classes in capitalist society: the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. The bourgeoisie are the owners of the means of production, such as factories and land, while the proletariat are the workers who sell their labour for wages. Marx argued that the bourgeoisie exploits the proletariat by paying them less than the value of the goods they produce, pocketing the surplus value as profit. One of Marx's key concepts is alienation, which refers to the estrangement of workers from the products of their labour, their own humanity, and their fellow workers. Marx identified four types of alienation: alienation from the product of labour, the process of labour, one's own species being, and other people. He argued that under capitalism, workers are reduced to mere cogs in the machine, unable to find fulfilment or meaning in their work. Marx's labour theory of value asserts that the value of a commodity is determined by the amount of socially necessary labour time required to produce it. However, in a capitalist system, workers are paid less than the value they create, and the difference, termed surplus value, is appropriated by the capitalist as profit. This exploitation is fundamental to Marx's critique of capitalism, as it underpins the accumulation of wealth and power by the bourgeoisie at the expense of the proletariat. Building on Hegel's dialectical method, Marx developed his own version known as dialectical materialism. This approach views societal change as the result of conflicts between opposing forces, driven by material conditions rather than abstract ideas. According to Marx, these contradictions within the economic structure of society eventually lead to revolutionary transformations. Marx's concept of the base and superstructure is central to his understanding of how societies function. The economic base, or the mode of production, shapes and influences the superstructure, which includes culture, institutions, politics, and ideology. Changes in the economic base precipitate changes in the superstructure, highlighting the interconnectedness of economic and social dynamics. The materialist conception of history, or historical materialism, posits that the development of human societies is primarily driven by material economic conditions rather than ideals or values. Marx argued that each stage of history is characterized by a specific mode of production, and that the progression from one stage to the next is marked by class struggles and revolutionary upheavals. Marx viewed ideology as a tool used by the ruling class to maintain its dominance. Ideological systems, including religion, education, and media, serve to reinforce the status quo by promoting the interests of the bourgeoisie and perpetuating false consciousness among the proletariat. By shaping the way people perceive and understand their social reality, ideology helps to mask the exploitative nature of capitalism. False consciousness is a term Marx used to describe the deluded mindset of the working class, which prevents them from recognizing their exploitation and uniting against the bourgeoisie. This condition is perpetuated by the ruling class's control over cultural and ideological institutions. Overcoming false consciousness requires class consciousness, where workers become aware of their collective interests and the true nature of their oppression. Marx believed that the proletariat must develop class consciousness to challenge the capitalist system. This awareness would lead to collective action and ultimately a proletarian revolution. Marx argued that the overthrow of the bourgeoisie and the establishment of a classless society were necessary steps towards ending exploitation and achieving true human emancipation. Following a successful revolution, Marx envisioned a transitional phase known as the dictatorship of the proletariat. During this period, the working class would seize control of the state apparatus to dismantle the remnants of bourgeois power and implement socialist reforms. This phase would pave the way for the eventual establishment of a classless, stateless, and communist society. In Marx's view, communism represents the final stage of human history, where class divisions and state structures are abolished. In this utopian vision, the means of production are collectively owned, and the distribution of resources is based on need rather than profit. Human beings are free to pursue their own development and fulfillment, liberated from the constraints of capitalist exploitation. Marx's magnum opus, Das Kapital, is a comprehensive critique of political economy. In this multi-volume work, Marx meticulously analyzes the inner workings of capitalism, exploring how value is created, how capital is accumulated, and how economic crises arise. Das Kapital delves into the dynamics of commodity production, the exploitation of labor, and the inevitable contradictions that lead to capitalism's downfall. Marx argued that capitalism is inherently unstable due to its cyclical nature of booms and busts. The drive for capital accumulation leads to overproduction, market saturation, and declining profit rates. These contradictions result in periodic economic crises, which exacerbate social inequalities and generate conditions ripe for revolutionary change. Marx's analysis extended beyond national borders to consider the global dimensions of capitalism. He argued that imperialism and colonialism were driven by the capitalist need for new markets, resources, and labour. This global expansion intensified the exploitation of workers and indigenous populations, further entrenching the inequalities and contradictions of the capitalist system. Karl Marx's ideas have had a profound impact on political movements and academic thought. His critique of capitalism inspired revolutionary movements worldwide, from the Russian Revolution to various anti-colonial struggles. Marxist theory has influenced disciplines such as sociology, economics, political science, and cultural studies, providing critical tools for analysing power, inequality, and social change. Despite his influence, Marx's ideas have been subject to various criticisms and reinterpretations. Critics argue that Marx underestimated the adaptability of capitalism and overemphasized the determinism of economic factors. Others have sought to update Marx's theory to address contemporary issues such as gender, race, and environmental degradation. Neo-Marxist scholars have built on and adapted Marx's theories to contemporary conditions. These thinkers have expanded Marxist analysis to include cultural hegemony, ideological state apparatuses, and the role of media in shaping consciousness. Marx's critique of capitalism remains relevant today, offering insights into the persistent issues of inequality, exploitation, and social justice. In Marxist theory, the state is not a neutral entity that represents the interests of all citizens equally. Instead, it is an instrument of class domination, serving the interests of the ruling class. In capitalist societies, the state functions to protect private property, maintain order, and suppress dissent, ensuring the continued dominance of the bourgeoisie. Marx distinguished between the state in capitalist society and the state in a socialist society. In the former, the state enforces the interests of capital, while in the latter, the state represents the interests of the working class during the transitional phase towards communism. Eventually, Marx envisioned the state withering away as class distinctions disappear in a fully realized communist society. Marx and Engels provided extensive commentary on the strategies and tactics of revolutionary movements. They emphasized the importance of organizing the working class into a unified political force capable of challenging the bourgeoisie. This involved the establishment of workers' parties, trade unions, and other forms of collective organization. Marx also recognized the need for revolutionary movements to be adaptable to changing conditions, while advocating for the overthrow of the capitalist state. He acknowledged that different contexts might require different approaches. For example, he supported the use of electoral politics in certain situations where it could advance the interests of the working class. Marx was a staunch advocate of internationalism, believing that the struggle against capitalism must be a global effort. He argued that capitalism's global nature necessitated an international working class movement to counteract the power of the bourgeoisie. This perspective was reflected in his involvement with the International Workingmen's Association, also known as the First International, which aimed to unite workers' movements across different countries. The principle of internationalism continues to be a significant aspect of Marxist theory and practice. Contemporary Marxist movements emphasize solidarity among workers worldwide, recognizing that global capitalism requires a coordinated global response. Marxist analysis extends beyond economics and politics to include culture. Marx and Engels argued that the ruling class controls not only the means of production, but also the means of cultural production. This control allows the bourgeoisie to shape cultural norms, values, and ideologies in ways that reinforce their dominance. Antonio Gramsci, an influential Marxist thinker, expanded on this idea with his concept of cultural hegemony. Gramsci argued that the ruling class maintains its power not merely through coercion, but also through the consensual acceptance of its ideology by the subordinate classes. Cultural institutions such as education, religion, and media play a crucial role in this process. Marxist aesthetics examines how art reflects and influences social conditions. According to Marxist theory, art is both a product of its material conditions and a potential means of critiquing and transforming those conditions. Marxist critics analyze how artworks represent class relations, ideology, and social struggles. Prominent Marxist thinkers such as Georg Lukács and Walter Benjamin explored the relationship between art and society. Lukács emphasized the concept of realism in literature, arguing that great works of art reveal the underlying social realities and contradictions of their time. Benjamin, on the other hand, examined the impact of technological reproduction on art, particularly how it alters the function and perception of art in capitalist societies. Literature, like other forms of art, is a site of ideological struggle. Marxist literary criticism analyzes texts to uncover the ways in which they reflect, reinforce, or challenge dominant ideologies. It explores how literature can both uphold and subvert the status quo, providing insights into the social dynamics of its time. Key figures in Marxist literary criticism include Raymond Williams and Terry Eagleton. Williams explored the cultural forms and practices of working-class life, while Eagleton examined the intersections of literature, ideology, and politics. Their work has contributed to a deeper understanding of how literature functions within and against the capitalist system. Marxist theory also critically examines the role of education in capitalist societies. Marxists argue that education systems often function to reproduce class inequalities by perpetuating the dominant ideology. Schools and universities, according to this view, serve to prepare individuals for their roles within the capitalist economy, instilling values and norms that align with the interests of the ruling class. However, Marxists also see education as a potential site of resistance and transformation. Paulo Freire, a Brazilian educator and influential Marxist thinker, developed the concept of critical pedagogy. Freire's work emphasizes the importance of education in raising critical consciousness and empowering individuals to challenge oppressive structures. Marxist psychology examines how social and economic conditions influence human behavior and mental processes. It critiques mainstream psychology for often ignoring the socio-economic context of individual experiences. Marxist psychologists argue that many psychological issues, such as alienation and mental distress, are rooted in the oppressive structures of capitalist society. An important development in Marxist psychology is Freudian Marxism, which combines the insights of Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis with Marxist social theory. Figures like Herbert Marcuse and Erich Fromm explored how the psychological effects of capitalism contribute to social control and alienation. Marcuse, in works like One-Dimensional Man, argued that advanced capitalist societies create a false sense of contentment among individuals, thereby suppressing revolutionary potential. Fromm, on the other hand, examined how capitalist societies foster destructive and authoritarian tendencies by promoting materialistic and competitive values. Feminist Marxism analyzes the intersection of capitalism and patriarchy, exploring how gender oppression is intertwined with class exploitation. Marxist feminists argue that traditional Marxist theory has often overlooked the role of women and the significance of reproductive labor. Reproductive labor includes all the tasks necessary to sustain and reproduce the labor force, such as childbearing, child-rearing, cooking, and cleaning. Marxist feminists highlight how this labor, predominantly performed by women, is essential to the functioning of the capitalist economy yet remains undervalued and unpaid. The socialization of reproductive labor is a key demand of Marxist feminists. They advocate for policies such as public childcare, paid parental leave, and equitable distribution of domestic work to reduce the burden on women and recognise the value of this essential labour. Social reproduction theory, a framework developed by Marxist feminists, examines how the processes of reproduction, biological, social, and economic, are interconnected and crucial to understanding capitalist societies. This theory highlights the ways in which gender, race, and class intersect to shape individuals' experiences and opportunities. Marxist theory has also been expanded to address issues of race and racism. Scholars like Cedric Robinson and Angela Davis have explored how capitalism and racism are mutually reinforcing systems of oppression. The concept of racial capitalism, introduced by Cedric Robinson, argues that capitalism has always been racialized, relying on and perpetuating racial hierarchies. From colonialism and slavery to contemporary forms of labor exploitation. Racial capitalism examines how economic and racial domination are intertwined. Marxist theory has increasingly engaged with environmental issues, developing the field of ecosocialism. Ecosocialists argue that capitalism's drive for endless growth and profit is fundamentally incompatible with ecological sustainability. The concept of the metabolic rift, developed by Marxist ecologist John Bellamy Foster, describes how capitalism disrupts the natural metabolic interaction between humans and the environment. This disruption leads to environmental degradation and ecological crises, highlighting the need for a sustainable and equitable economic system. Neoliberalism, characterized by deregulation, privatization, and austerity measures, has been a dominant economic paradigm since the late 20th century. Marxist critics argue that neoliberal policies exacerbate inequality, undermine social welfare, and intensify the exploitation of labor and natural resources. Marxist theory also analyzes the global dimensions of capitalism, particularly the processes of globalization and new forms of imperialism. Scholars like David Harvey and Samir Amin have explored how global capital flows, multinational corporations, and international financial institutions perpetuate unequal economic relations between the global North and South. Marxist critics argue that institutions like the IMF and World Bank enforce neoliberal policies that benefit wealthy countries and corporations while imposing austerity and structural adjustment programs on developing nations. These policies often lead to increased poverty, social unrest, and environmental degradation. Marxism continues to inspire and inform contemporary social movements around the world. From labour unions and political parties to grassroots organisations and global networks, Marxist principles are applied to address a wide range of issues. The global justice movement, also known as the anti-globalization movement, emerged in the late 20th and early 21st centuries as a response to neoliberal globalization. Activists in this movement critique corporate power, advocate for fair trade, and promote environmental and social justice. The Occupy Wall Street movement, which began in 2011, brought attention to the issue of economic inequality and the concentration of wealth and power in the hands of the 1%. Inspired by Marxist critiques of capitalism, the movement called for systemic changes to address the root causes of inequality and exploitation. Around the world, socialist and communist parties continue to advocate for policies based on Marxist principles. These parties often focus on issues such as workers' rights, public ownership of key industries, and social welfare programs. Examples include the Socialist Party in France, the Communist Party of China, and the Democratic Socialists of America. Despite the changes in the global economic and political landscape, Marxism remains relevant as a critical framework for analysing and addressing contemporary issues. The persistent problems of inequality, exploitation, and environmental degradation highlight the need for systemic change. The digital revolution has transformed the economy and society, raising new questions for Marxist analysis. Issues such as the gig economy, data surveillance, and digital labour exploitation require updated theoretical tools to understand and address the impacts of technology on labour and capital. Automation and artificial intelligence are rapidly changing the nature of work, leading to debates about the future of labour and the economy. Marxist theorists analyse how these technologies might exacerbate unemployment, de-skill workers, and concentrate wealth and power in the hands of a few tech giants. The rise of platform capitalism, characterised by companies like Amazon, Uber, and Facebook, has introduced new forms of labour exploitation and market dominance. Marxist critiques of platform capitalism examine how these companies extract value from digital labour, commodify user data, and undermine traditional labour protections. Marxism continues to inform and inspire social movements that address a wide range of issues, from economic justice to climate action. By providing a critical analysis of capitalism and a vision for an alternative society, Marxist theory offers valuable insights and strategies for contemporary struggles. The climate justice movement seeks to address the disproportionate impacts of climate change on marginalised communities and advocate for systemic solutions. Ecosocialists argue that addressing the climate crisis requires a fundamental transformation of the capitalist system, emphasising the need for sustainable and equitable economic practices. The Black Lives Matter movement highlights the ongoing issues of racial injustice and police brutality. Marxist analysis of racial capitalism provides a framework for understanding how economic and racial oppression are interconnected and reinforces the need for a united struggle against all forms of domination. Contemporary feminist movements continue to draw on Marxist insights to address the intersections of gender, class, and other forms of oppression. Marxist feminists advocate for policies that recognise and value reproductive labour, promote gender equality in the workplace, and challenge patriarchal structures in all areas of society. Indigenous movements around the world are fighting for land rights, cultural preservation, and self-determination. Marxist analysis of colonialism and imperialism provides a critical lens for understanding the historical and ongoing exploitation of Indigenous peoples and their lands. As we move further into the 21st century, Marxism continues to evolve and adapt to new challenges and opportunities. By integrating insights from various critical theories and responding to contemporary issues, Marxism remains a vital and dynamic framework for understanding and transforming our world. Karl Marx's intellectual legacy is vast and multifaceted. His critique of capitalism, his analysis of class struggle, and his vision of a socialist and communist future have inspired countless movements and shaped the course of history. While his ideas have been subject to various interpretations and criticisms, the fundamental questions he raised about power, exploitation, and human emancipation remain crucial to our understanding of society. As we continue to grapple with the challenges of the 21st century, rising inequality, environmental degradation, and persistent social injustices, Marx's insights offer valuable tools for critique and action. Whether we seek to understand the dynamics of capitalism, envision alternative futures, or build movements for social change, Marx's work provides a rich and enduring resource. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the life and ideas of Karl Marx. We hope you found this exploration enlightening and thought-provoking. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content on philosophy, history, and social theory. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep striving for a better world.